Deputy Prime Minister, let me thank you and the Republic of Kosovo for organizing this important forum, allowing us to develop strategies to uphold sustainable peace. In the year 2000, when the UN Women, Peace and Security Agenda was established, we thought things could only get better, that women's rights would improve, that peace was a given. We have made progress, but the world is changing. Armed conflicts continue. Many regions of the world are insecure. Decades of achievements on gender equality have rolled back. With Russia's escalating attacks on Ukraine, democracy is at stake and women's rights are threatened too. Nothing can be taken for granted. From women in Rwanda, we learn lessons on how to overcome the horrors of genocide and to negotiate lasting peace and security. From women in Ukraine, we learn about courage and draw inspiration. The European Union has always been committed to helping women through the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, working with the United Nations, with NATO and with the ASEAN Regional Forum to empower women and promote their pivotal role in brokering peace. We champion women for leadership positions, and to help shape decisions on gender-based violence and victim support, all EU projects related to the rule of law or peace involve 1/3 of women as a bare minimum. The European Parliament also stands by the UN Women, Peace and Security Agenda. We have called for the inclusion of more women and the inclusion of a gender perspective in the foreign and security policies of all EU member states, while staff of EU diplomatic posts should follow mandatory training on gender equality. 4 months ago, on the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict, while I spoke at the 30th anniversary of the Foča atrocities, where rape was used as a weapon of war in Bosnia-Herzegovina, Russian armed forces were committing acts of sexual violence on Ukrainians. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what have we learned from the Foča atrocities? There is no time for complacency regarding a serious threat to the advancement of women's rights, nor is there time for pessimism. Together, as leaders and outspoken defenders of the role of women in preventing conflict and in peace negotiations, we have lessons to share with one another and leverage in abundance to counter ills that we will not tolerate. I wish you insightful discussions. May your conversations in Pristina resonate a message across the world for the advancement of women's rights, peace and security.
Thank you, President Metsola, for this message. I'm sure we will send a strong message from Pristina during this weekend. And thank you, Adriatic, for helping me to open this forum. Please, everyone, give him a round of applause. He was great in teaching me Albanian and helping me with this opening part of the forum. Now, let's hear from our keynote speakers. Before we kick off our agenda and discussion panels, you have it there with you, so you can see we have very significant panels ahead. But first, my next speaker often called for justice for war victims, especially women who endured the war's torture during the war in Kosovo. Today, he continues to fight for equal representation for women during times of peace. Please welcome His Excellency, Mr. Albin Kurti, the Prime Minister of Kosovo.
Mirëmëngjes të gjithëve, Honorable Madam President of the Republic of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, Honorable President of the Republic of Malta, George Vela, Honorable Vice President of the Republic of Palau, Udu Senbal Senior, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of European Affairs of the Government of Montenegro, Jovana Marovic, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia, Artan Grubi, dear leaders, experts, academics, civil society representatives, dear members of Parliament and ministers of the Cabinet of Republic of Kosovo, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be among you today at the opening of Women, Peace and Security Forum. It is a pleasure to be together on this very important topic. Women, peace and security is not only a topic but also a mission. It is like an indivisible trinity. It has often seemed that the call for security is directed at men first. Every day it is seen more and more that this is not correct. Women answer both emergency calls and daily calls for peace and security as if it is their life's effort. Because women are the most interested in peace and security policies, perhaps because they are also the most threatened by the absence of these two. Therefore, almost every woman becomes the guardian of this sought-after calmness. Security for women and men everywhere. Peace to all members of the society. Dear attendees, there has been no stage at which women have not been involved in calls and endeavors for freedom and peace. The engagement of the women and girls of Kosovo has also not been absent in state building, as it is not absent in the day-to-day functioning of our state. They have held weapons, bread, pencils, microphones and megaphones in their hands with the only for the nation and for the future. And many states defined by democratic values, such as our state, have similar histories. Ladies and gentlemen, as we watch the war in Ukraine unfold, we go back years in time to our own fight for freedom, women and men, girls and boys together. The participation of women and girls in law enforcement and security institutions transcends itself. It is also a road marker for every girl who follows this path in life with courage and determination. The number of women and girls currently serving in Kosovo Security Force and the Kosovo Police is substantial, but it must be increased further. There is no greater guarantee for peace and security except for it to be realized by women and men together. But there is also no other alternative. It is the fairest, safest, and most effective guarantee possible. More women in the armed forces and law enforcement also means better promotion and realization of human rights and minority rights. The growing interest and number of women and girls in the area of security is a good indicator of the direction and future of our country. The women and girls of Kosovo have sacrificed much. They have been both victims and fighters. They have contributed across many different categories, and they've contributed ever more to the democratization of the Republic's institutions. Therefore, it is my duty to support and encourage them. Current and historical examples are numerous. Women have not only aided security policies, but have also led them. Therefore, our people trust women just as much as men when it comes to security issues. As citizens and as institutions, we have designated as Supreme Commander, as President of the Republic, Madam Vjosa Osmani Sadriu. Dear participants of the Women, Peace and Security Forum, despite the progress and positive changes we have made as societies and as states, the challenges are also great. We notice everywhere, in every institution, including security institutions, the knowledge, contribution, experience, and presence of women. But our aim is much greater than that. Equal participation everywhere. Therefore, as Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, I express my readiness and willingness and my full and unsparing support in strengthening the role of women and increasing their participation, advancing the realization of rights in decision-making, peace, security, and justice, guaranteeing the achievement of gender equality. This is the third strategic objective of Kosovo's program for gender equality 2020-2024, towards the attainment of which we are engaged together in Kosovo. Women's participation in decision-making, institutions, and security forces is a must. Formal involvement alone is not sufficient. Active participation is also necessary. Inclusion means that women contribute, but participation means they also benefit. Women contribute, so they should also benefit. Gender equality means liberation, not just integration. It means participation, not just inclusion. If women have no voice in the institutional response to all threats to human security, the response will also be half-hearted and unbalanced. We would then lack the necessary nuances for an effective response to save lives, dignity, and civic values. Women must be recognized for their contribution, because that recognition has been denied to them for far too long. And they must participate because they should have the right and they deserve to do so. Dear friends, when we discuss about peace, we end up talking about justice and security. When we discuss about security, we end up talking about economy and democracy. When we discuss about democracy, we end up talking about women and youth. Therefore, let's start with women, continue with youth, and surely achieve peace and security. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister Kurti. People in Kosovo trust women when it comes to security issues, almost the same as they trust men. That's what I picked up there, and it's quite significant and interesting. And we can see that when we see so many of women in position and in office here in Kosovo. Now I want to invite Her Excellency Jovana Marovic. She is the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of European Affairs of Montenegro to join us here on stage.
Good morning, dear President Osmani, dear Prime Minister Kurti, ladies and gentlemen, dear women all around the world. It's my great pleasure to be here today and to greet you all on behalf of government of Montenegro. I'm really honored to be one of the speakers and panelists during these 2 days and to discuss this really important topic right here in Pristina, right here in the Republic of Kosovo. When the United Nations organized the first World Conference on the Status of Women in Mexico City in 1975 to remind the international community that women throughout the world are suffering from manifold discrimination, the goals for advancement of women were set high. The first one, to achieve gender equality and eliminate gender discrimination. The second one, to fully integrate women in decision-making process and in development processes in general. The third one, to allow women contribution in the world peace. In 2000, the United Security Council adopted this resolution 1325 on women, peace and security, in line with which this conference and this forum is held. This convention addressed for the first time the impact of armed conflicts on women and was aimed at increasing women's participation at all levels in making decisions and war prevention, peace building and peacekeeping, as well as providing protection on women and girls in conflicts. Unfortunately, until today, these goals are not met and we are still working on it. Although gender equality is a basic human right, inequalities in that sphere are still deep-rooted in almost every society. In some parts of the world, girls and women are still denied access to even basic education and health care. Women are often faced with discrimination during employment, and if they succeed in getting the decent work, they face with unequal rights and also at work with underpaid work. They are also underrepresented in the political life and economic decision-making. We are all witnessing that there are many women at important positions, but in the Western Balkans, we are still struggling to have more women in important positions. Therefore, let us all do our best to use this forum to draw attention to the importance of achieving peace, with particular emphasis on the women and their position and role in these turbulent times, because I'm convinced that female participation and solutions can make the world a much better and safer place to live. And just to briefly reflect on the question from the very beginning during the video, can we be the change? Yes, we are the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Jovana Maromić. I hope we will see more women in Montenegrin Parliament in the future and soon. Your numbers are not great at the moment, but soon. Let's this be a first step towards that. Thank you. Join me now in welcoming His Excellency Artan Grubi, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of North Macedonia.
Mirdita gjithve, Honorable President of the Republic of Kosovo, Madam Vjosa Osmani, and host of this conference, dear Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo, Mr. Albin Kurti, dear honorable guests, ambassadors, ministers, members of Parliament, dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start by thanking President Osman for the kind invitation to attend the very first edition of WPS, as well as to congratulate her and the team for organizing such a great conference. In turbulent times like the one we are going through, not yet sufficiently recovered from the consequences of the pandemic, our attention and concern is already focused on the open war front in Ukraine, where the foundations of continental peace and security are attacked, or rather, the world order is under threat. When such horrible events reoccur, regardless if they are near or far from us, we, who have unfortunately gone through similar experiences, cannot cold-bloodedly watch as spectators. It is not just the noise of planes, tanks, or artillery that comes to us through media news, but a powerful cry demanding justice, peace, freedom, and an end to the destruction. The destruction and victims in Ukraine remind us of the destructions and victims in the bloody wars that took place in the 90s in our countries. Unfortunately, we must state that there are still people who have not learned the sad lessons from the disasters of past wars, from the terrible deeds of evil ideologies and destructive regimes that left many ruins, both in the literal sense as well as in the metaphorical one. Our continent's history, unfortunately, marks 2/3 of periods of wars and only 1/3 of peace period. Therefore, all of us should strive for a dignified and threat-free life where our attention would be focused on the quality of life. Pristina and all of Kosovo have also undergone such terrible atrocities. Victims of the war and the missing persons, unfortunately, do not end only at the tombstones of the martyrs, but also at the echoes of pain for the most loved ones that does not stop even with the passing of the years. The echoes of the wounds of thousands of girls and women who became victims of violence against them are so loud. Healing their wounds is an important social mission, not just an individual one. I know that this is a painful topic, and we must bow to the courage of those women who, speaking openly about what they experience, have contributed a little to raise awareness amongst our societies to throw away all the prejudice over the victims of violence against women in wars. Another devastating prejudice, I must say, is the infamous report of the former Swiss Senator Dick Marty that gave such an unbelievable dimension and put a stain on the just, liberating war of the Kosovo people. An invention that matches Putin's propaganda on Ukraine based on lies, turned them into unverified facts, despite the fact that the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia concluded opposite to the fake report and closed the investigation as ungrounded. Ladies and gentlemen, in our imperfect societies and in unfinished reform processes, but also due to accompanying anomalies of these processes, we can still encounter phenomena that worry us. Therefore, we are here and responsible to deal with whether we have carried residues of ideologies and other evil phenomena even today, when women and vulnerable groups are once again placed under the target of violence, torture, and inhumane treatment for different motives and causes. Today, we are here to give our message that these phenomena are alien, strange to us, to our societies, that forms of violence and subjugation are unacceptable, because we dare not take steps behind, especially when we are correcting ideological injustice and leaving behind the discriminatory mentality, particularly towards the position of women, advancing every day more and more her position in the decision-making process and the factoring of her voice. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, as a grandchild to a grandmother, as a son to a mother, as a husband to a wife, as a father to 2 daughters, I say that feminine sensitivity crosses the doorstep of the home. It is universal. And let the modified words of our dear friend, the first female Secretary of State in America, Madam Madeleine Albright, in whose honor we have gathered today, be an inspiration for us men, when she said, modified words again, I must emphasize, that there is a very special place in hell for every man who does not help women. So, in conclusion, dear ladies and gentlemen, women do really rule. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Ruby, Your Excellency, for this speech. Okay, let's move away a little bit from the Western Balkans. Our next speaker introduced a bill mandating maternity leave and banning discrimination against pregnant women. She advocated for gender equality in public office. She's hoping that more women will enter politics in the future, and she often says the finance and the reason that they don't have enough money is why they don't run for the office. Join me in welcoming Her Excellency Uduh Sengebau Sr., Vice President of the Republic of Palau.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Ali from Palau and Mira Mezjes, and good morning. It is my honor and pleasure that I join our delegation from the Republic of Palau in extending our warm island greetings to Her Excellency Vjosa Osmani Sadriu, and Mr. Prime Minister and members of the Cabinet of the Republic of Kosovo, and to all distinguished guests in this occasion of the Women, Peace and Security Forum. As global citizens, partners, and friends, we need events like this, events where we gather in all our different capacities to discuss measures, to finding solutions to addressing issues such as hatred of mother and education, women's rights, and rights of ethnic minorities, all of which stand against the very principles we work towards in promoting peaceful, just, and inclusive societies. The Women, Peace, and Security agenda is an essential tool in ensuring the rights and protection of women and girls, ensuring that they are observed and upheld at all times. and confirms that a meaningful and equitable role in decision-making is secured for women of all ages during all stages of conflict prevention, peacemaking, and peace building and post-conflict rehabilitation. I commend the efforts of the Republic of Kosovo on the implementation of the agenda, especially with the progress in their legislation and policies and strategies, the Constitution, the law against discrimination, the law on gender equality, the law on protection from domestic violence, the anti-trafficking national working program, the working plan of the economic empowerment of women, and the policy on human rights and gender equality by the Ministry of Kosovo's Security Force. We recognize that even in front of laws and policies, that there may not be immediate answers and solutions. Things take time, but we begin somewhere and work from there. Kosovo's consistent efforts in promoting gender equality, protecting human rights, and empowering women highlight not only their ambition for a peaceful Kosovo for their people, but an overall contribution to establishing a peaceful world where the global community is concerned. The current challenges that Kosovo is facing are no different than challenges faced by many societies around the world. These shared challenges we face may always be daunting and cannot be resolved overnight. But I believe that just as our forebears had the courage to confront the issues of their day, so we too can confront the great moral issues of our time. In doing so, we need to be consistent and persistent with opportunities like this, coming together to combine our efforts and visions for a peaceful world, a common goal we all mutually share. The Women, Peace, and Security Agenda projects the power and strength of women and how we can work together to effect change. As global women and as respective women of our individual cultures, we are important. The roles and positions we hold are important. It is us, the women, who every single day play the role of protecting, promoting, and supporting the rights and needs of women, children, and the elderly, the most vulnerable members of our societies. I have met survivors in my work, and some are women and girls who have endured some of the worst in this world. However, I have seen a quality in them, a quality that they all share, and that is the ability to believe in the rise of a new day, even in the darkest dawn. For those of us who have seen or who know survivors who have seen many bleak new dawns, let us all of us here, all of us who have had the opportunities to get educated and hold various positions, including our position now, dedicate our efforts toward giving the younger generation and future generations of women and girls the same opportunities that we have had. Let us build new networks and partnerships, strengthening existing ones, and express our solidarity in uniting our efforts to secure peace and security for our respective people and the world, especially women and girls. Let our efforts only combine with the hard work of those women in the past as we further strive to ensure a peaceful, just, and inclusive world. Let all the steps we take be aimed at giving every woman and girl a way forward. Let us be the hope, for hope is the faith holding out its hand in the dark. Let us be the hope for the continued progress of the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda. Thank you very much. Komral Misulang and Falaminderit Shume.
Thank you, Your Excellency Uduh Sengebau Senior. That was a very powerful speech. Now, a person who will close this opening ceremony, His Excellency George Vela, President of Malta. Please join us here on stage.
Your Excellency, Dr. Vjosa Osmani, President of the Republic of Kosovo, Prime Minister Kurti, Excellencies, too many to mention individually, distinguished guests, friends. I want to start off by expressing my gratitude to Her Excellency Vjosa Osmani, President of the Republic of Kosovo, for bringing us all here today to discuss a very topical subject, the role of women in fostering peace and security around the world. Last March, I had the honor to host President Osmani in Malta for a very similar event where we spoke about just peace. During our deliveries, we both acknowledged the role of women in achieving a peaceful, just world. I recall that on that day, President Osmani stated that long-term peace is always possible when women are also included at the table of peace and dialogue. I cannot agree more with that statement and want to add that prior to delving into the merits of international law, of rights and of freedoms, we need to acknowledge that reinforcing the role of women in all aspects of life is in itself a direct contribution to a more democratic, just, and equitable world. We all know, however, that the situation on the ground is unfortunately very different. Women are still very much underrepresented at decision-making levels. They are exposed to violence and in many circumstances deprived of formal education and put in the most vulnerable of situations. According to the United Nations publication Progress on the Sustainable Development Goals, the Gender Snapshot 2022, if one considers the current progress on SDG 5 related to gender equality, it may take up to 286 years to remove discriminatory laws and close prevailing gaps in legal protections for women and girls. With regard to the other SDGs, the situation, unfortunately, is also very bleak. Figures and statistics are shocking. The reality they represent on the ground is even more so. I will only refer to SDG 1 regarding poverty. This year's report clearly states that 380 million women and girls live in extreme poverty, and the prospects are that the figure will continue to grow definitely until the year 2030. With this in mind, we understand why there is an urgent need for women-specific actions at international level that target these scenarios. From the Beijing Action to the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, referred to as CEDAW, to the United Nations Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security, which goes back now more than 20 years, all these legal instruments provide tools for raising women's conditions and access to equal possibilities at par with their male counterparts. It is encouraging to note that there is a concerted effort amongst regional and international organizations and institutions, such as the European Union, the OSCE, the Council of Europe, and NATO itself, to adhere as much as possible to the Women in Peace and Security agenda and shape policies within the indicated parameters. Distinguished guests, dear friends, I applaud and thank Kosovo for taking the initiative to organize this important forum and bringing together such a large number of different stakeholders. Sadly, Kosovo knows too well the devastating consequences brought about by conflict, which disproportionately affect women and girls. I am sure that all of us present here look forward to learn more about your experiences, your said experiences in this regard. Malta firmly believes that a whole-of-society approach is needed in order to implement the Women, Peace and Security agenda. While my country, Malta itself, is not exposed to armed conflict, in the past 10 to 20 years it has become an increasingly multicultural country in which a growing number of women coming from conflict and conflict-affected areas reside. To this effect, on the domestic level, Malta adopted a National Action Plan for the implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. This action plan, intended to cover the period 2020 to 2024, is based on 4 pillars: promotion, prevention, participation, and partnerships. The plan seeks to ensure that the particular needs of women who have experienced conflict are taken into account in the services provided in order to support the recovery from trauma, physical trauma and psychological trauma. As a state, we believe in consistently promoting gender equality and women's empowerment, as they are at the core of our European values. In addition, gender mainstreaming is intrinsic to government policy. The success of gender mainstreaming is only possible through strong political commitment, adequate institutional structures and procedures, as well as a reinforced implementation across all policy areas. We also believe that investing in the economic and political empowerment of women does yield substantial results. Distinguished guests, over the past years, the world has been plagued by manifold challenges to our security, ranging from security of our borders to human security. Our efforts and livelihoods have been threatened by the COVID-19 pandemic. We have been directly and indirectly affected by conflicts in the region and beyond, while climate change and natural disasters continue to play havoc and cause concern. The key role of women can play in contributing to addressing these challenges is more important than ever. Represented here today, as has already been said, are women from Ukraine. They have been facing Russian aggression and violence for months. To them I say, your fortitude, your courage are admirable. And we, the international community, are duty-bound to continue assisting you in your fight in assuring your welfare and that of your families. In this context, we also cannot fail to mention the resilience of women in Iran, who rose against authoritarianism with one voice in the face of brutal violence and repression. Their collective action in the light of the different scenarios they are living in is nothing but inspiring. It is the women in these countries that are demanding the change. We owe it to them. A change that grants them respect and safety and authority to develop their potential. A change that ultimately enhances the social, political, and economic wealth in their countries. Their strength and determination encourage us to be bold and support such initiatives in our own countries where they are still lacking. During the last years, we have seen countless examples of women taking leading roles in our society. We saw it in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, women being leaders, policing, working as health workers, and as teachers who provided children with some semblance of normality